winds. So we really need to look at all the hazards that are happening right now across eastern Texas. You can see we've got two big clusters of thunderstorms, one to the north, one to the south. This is the one that we want to focus in on right here. Eastern Texas moving into Louisiana. Numerous flash flood warnings are active right now here. Very serious situation, as you just heard, with people needing to get rescued because of flooding that is ongoing. And then we also have a couple severe thunderstorm warnings and a tornado warning. So we'll go into that first to show you what we are working with right here. All right, so this tornado warning, this is for parts of Hardin and Jefferson County. It includes communities like Loeb, Lumberton, Rose Hill Acres. It goes until 8:15 local time. You can see the area outlined in red that's under the tornado warning. It also does include Highway 287. Now, we're going to track it for you. You can see here on the velocity where we're looking at that apparent rotation. It's right in here. It's broad at the moment, but we know how it goes with these type of situations. Things can tighten up. They can change in between radar scans. And so we want to make sure that you are in your safe shelter if you are under this tornado warning. Interior room, putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Obviously, basement or storm shelter is always the best spot to be if you have that available. Loeb 819, Pine Forest 837 here. And then beyond that, we'll take it outside the warning. About 842 to Vider. Now, this is not the only threat. We also have the rainfall concerns. As you heard, there have been rescues this morning, so we also want to look at all of the flash flood warnings that we have ongoing. This one here, this is to the north of the area where we had that tornado warning. This is up in parts of Jasper and Tyler counties here in East Texas. It includes Warren and Woodville. It goes until 10:30 with considerable risk for flash flooding. This also includes parts of 287 and Highway 69. Here, if you can avoid travel, I would. Just seeing some of the scenes that are coming out of that area. Let's wait until everything kind of settles and the water is not covering roadways. We also have a flash flood warning right here around the Huntsville area. Now, the heaviest of rain has moved out. We're still getting some showers. The rainfall across the zone has been absolutely tremendous. Just going back to the past 4 days, we've had 20 inches of rain in this area. If you can imagine, you know, this zone over towards like Livingston, I mean, it has been so saturated. So the fact that we got about 8 to 10 inches of rain in the last, well, 12 hours or even less than that here really took its toll on the area, considering how saturated it's been lately. So we are concerned that there could be additional flash flooding, of course, and waiting for the existing flooding to go down. Plenty of moisture for the atmosphere to work with across this area. And so we're seeing that here. The brightest colors in the background indicating where we have the most moisture. We're on the upper end of the scale. And that's why we've been dealing with some of the flooding already today, because of just how saturated the atmosphere is. And it's really these deep, tall, almost tropical clouds that go high into the sky, and they're able to produce a lot of rainfall, which is what we've seen. Past 12 hours coming in with widespread areas of 5 to close to 10 inches of rain. There have been a few spots measuring more than 10 inches of rainfall. Really good gauge system across Texas that allows us to see specific totals, not just radar estimates, which we can bring you here, but we can double check this against some of the totals. And indeed, they're coming in at more than 10, 11 inches of rainfall here in just the last 24 hours, even 12 hours. So Huntsville, there's some flooding and water rescues that have been ongoing near Farm Market Road 1696. Up in Mexia, there have been stranded motorists at Highway 14 and 171. Now, these are storm reports that happen, but want to make sure you know kind of the magnitude of the situation. The flooding is very serious. You need to take these flash flood warnings seriously here in East Texas. Now, Greg, and talk about what's coming our way, where in places like Atlanta, we're going to 88 degrees, D.C. 90 degrees. D.C., you're going to beat Atlanta, which it happens sometimes. But yes, the heat is on in both spots, running above average. It's going to be a hot one today with the sunshine out there. And there'll be a few clouds, but not really the rain-making clouds here in the south. Temperatures up above average all across the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley. Look at Columbus, Ohio, going up into the upper 80s. It's going to be warm up there in Cleveland and Toledo, especially away from the water. But the record high temperatures we're going to see in spots like Indianapolis. We're going to keep an eye out here through the mid-Atlantic. Elkins in West Virginia, 84 degrees the forecast. 85 is the record to beat. Lynchburg, we've got 88. That's the forecast. 91 is the record to beat, so it's close. It's not necessarily record-breaking, but it's very close in all of these spots. We're going to be going above average tomorrow as well for 101 million people, and then a break. But then look at Sunday. we're starting to ramp back up again. You can see the middle of the country warms up, and then by Tuesday, a lot of population back above average, 210 million folks above average with temperatures. We will feel it in Florida too. Look at Tampa and Jacksonville, mid to upper 80s. New Orleans, upper 80s. Got a lot of temps in the 80s across Tennessee, including Nashville, Kentucky. We're going to be looking at a warm second half of your weekend as well. And then Monday, here we go. There'll be a little bit of a cool down back to 80 in Nashville, but that's, really just about average. But staying warm across the deep south. Houston, 88 degrees as we look ahead to that Monday forecast here, in Tampa warming up a little bit more as well. Now let's look at the concerns for heat. This is a graphic that's new to you, so I want to make sure you know about it. This is called heat risk. This is a product that the National Weather Service has been working on and testing for years. It's actually been in use across parts of the West and communities in Arizona that are, dealing with a lot of heat. But now it's available nationwide. This is a really useful tool to know how is the heat going to be a risk to you. And it really is dependent on local areas, what you're used to, how much heat you've had. So moderate to major impacts here in Central and South Texas. This is looking ahead to Monday because of that heat. You saw that 88 that we're going to have in Houston. Humidity is a part of the factor as well. What is the feels like going to be? Tuesday, it actually goes up a little bit with that heat risk. So make sure this gives you good information. Make sure that you have ways to stay hydrated and stay cool and reduce your time outside during that peak heating of the sun. Alex.
Well, as we work on things from...
You saw the raindrops on the lens of that camera. There's a lot of rain out here still. A lot of the heaviest of rainfall rates has moved out of the area that has been dealing with the worst of the flooding, but there's still flash flood warnings active, and you notice a new one just popped up. And I think that's interesting, right? And a lot of times you think it's got to be raining to be under a flash flood warning. No. Sometimes those problems happen after the rain ends. The water levels are still going up, whether it's a bayou or whether it's a stream or creek that goes over roadways. So we have some of those concerns right there. But look at all of these flash flood warnings and a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings too. So that's also been a concern, is that we could get some strong winds coming out of this leading edge of the whole line of thunderstorms. Now, this particular warning had a tornado warning on it. The tornado warning was allowed to expire. It was canceled because the circulation was much more broad, but there's still concerns out there. So we're looking at this area with some strong winds possible. This includes Beaumont and Loeb and Vidor. We're watching this track east, and as it does with it again, you see that backwards C shape to it, indicating the risk for some strong damaging winds. Another spot to watch in Humble, Texas, we are also under severe thunderstorm warning for strong damaging wind potential and flash flooding concerns still in Huntsville, and more rain is about to come back in.
Well, it won't be long. Yeah, I mean, there is always that worry, right? That something's going to happen. But let's be honest. 7, 8, 9 times out of 10, you're going to...
Insurance, have travel insurance for this very reason, though, because then you can sort of rest assured, like, okay, I'll be covered if I have to change. But we're going to actually talk more about that coming up on Monday.
Yeah, be sure to tune in then. We're going to be chatting with an expert on travel insurance to walk us through what is and is not covered as you plan your trip to the tropics.
We are blasting off to the moon. Alex, this morning I was looking at some of the forecasted soundings, which is what does the atmosphere look like going all the way up. It looks tropical.
Right. And with that, the rain has been coming down, I mean, in just incredible bunches here. Right now, parts of East Texas and now starting to push on into Louisiana, getting on some of this rain. Look at all of the green zones. Those are all the flash flood warnings in effect right now.
We have a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, too. This leading edge of this big cluster of thunderstorms. This has been a concern for some strong damaging winds. This now includes Beaumont. It's right overhead for you. Loeb and Vidor, we're watching this move east here, and it is blasting east, so at least you're not stuck in that wind threat for too long.
Right. Watch out for 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts. That's a real risk with that. Maybe even the potential for some hail, quarter-size hail, too. Then we get into the flash flood warnings, and again, a number of those are in place. Now, we aren't seeing the steady shield of rain, but we are still seeing pockets of rain, and some of that's heavy at times. And more to the west. That's going to move over those areas that are currently under the flood watches.
There's more to come back in. There's a flash flood warning for Huntsville and Riverside. We've seen reports of flooding here this morning. The rainfall has just been absolutely tremendous between here and over towards West Livingston. That area in here has had more than 8 to 10 inches of rain in just the last, really, 12 hours.
And more to come.
And more to come.
So, it's not going to be getting better anytime soon in those spots. And the issue is that we've got more rain here for you through the day and into tomorrow, not just there to Texas, Louisiana, but also farther north where we've seen some steady rains up into northeastern Oklahoma, a bit of Missouri in there, too.
So the rivers, of course, have been a concern. We've been talking about this since the rain that we had last week. It has been so rainy. One of our weather producers, Abby, got a great stat for me out of Huntsville that we've had more than 80% of our annual rain already.
For the year?
For the year. For the year.
Yeah.
Down in Huntsville, Texas, which is, north of Houston. So all of that water, a lot of it has come really in the past couple of weeks. The past 4 days have brought us more than 20 inches of rain. So you see all these gauges that are running up at purple, indicating major flooding. The gauges are not forecast to come down in the next few days.
No, not at all. And yeah, one of the reasons why is because we have additional rainfall likely to deal with more flooding here through the day and into tomorrow morning. That's anywhere you see that yellow showing up. And then the green, which extends all the way up into the Great Lakes, at least the possibility. Now, it's not that the entire zone of green or yellow will see flooding, but those are the spots we're going to be most concerned with that taking shape.
We get back into the weekend forecast and looking ahead to the risk of thunderstorms coming back. We've got more rain chances. So, you think about how saturated we are here, and also just knowing how the river basins drain, that, we'll be watching for more additional flooding concerns getting into this weekend, Texas. And then the southeast starts to get wet, too.
Yeah, we will start to finally push some of that rain farther east. But here's how it plays out here for the rest of the day. Again, very slowly seeing things progress towards the Mississippi River Valley. Heading into basically your Friday morning look, more rain and storms back in the areas that have gotten hit pretty hard already. We want to get an update on what's happening in Texas with the flooding. So joining us now on the phone is Polk County, Texas Judge Sidney Murphy. Thank you for joining us. Sir, what can you tell us about the current flooding situation? National monument and preserve there was established 100 years ago today.
Lead interpretive ranger. And for those who may have never heard of Craters of the Moon, what can people expect to find when they visit the monument?
Absolutely. Craters of the Moon is...
That seems like quite a bit of a hidden gem, right? Well, today, kicking off the start of your centennial celebrations, what are you doing each month now to commemorate 100 years?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many amazing...
That sounds really fun, like an outdoor amphitheater.
But I meant campground amphitheater.
No, I think that's a portmanteau that probably describes it perfectly, a camphitheater. Awesome. You mentioned the lava. So let's talk about how this weird and scenic landscape actually was formed by lava flows here. Can you tell us more?
Absolutely. So for the last 15...
That is. This, again, had no idea.
Yeah.
Now, Craters of the Moon deals with all types of weather, wind, rain, snow, sun, of course. Tell us a bit about how people can experience it throughout the different seasons.
Absolutely.
This is so great. Now, in terms of traveling there, do you close for the winter? Is there a snow issue?
Occasionally, if the road closes.
Fantastic.
Another spot to add to my list, my growing list of places to visit. Catherine Orland there, Craters of the Moon National Monument and Preserve. Thanks so much for joining us, educating us on this. Seems like a really great spot here, right in the States.
I mean, in our backyard, basically.
Literally, yeah.
Right? You have to go to the moon, although I still want to. But our question of the day is actually, if you spent time in space.
Because we just ended up visiting a place here on Earth that looks like the moon. So we're asking, if you spent time in space, what do you think you would miss most about Mother Nature on Earth?
Al says rivers and who have been on the ISS, especially ones that have been there for a long time, they often say they miss the weather, they miss rain.
Right. I mean, think about just here on Earth when you go.
Although we do have too much rain in Texas right now.
Yeah, a little too much. Absolutely, indeed. Well, keep the comments coming. You can share them with us here. Head to Threads, and we will highlight a few more as we head through the show.
All right, let's get into the out there with some of
from coast to coast.
Even a relatively quiet afternoon can still produce tornadoes like we saw last night in Texas. Look at this. This is Clarington, Texas.
That is about as textbook when it comes to a visual.
Yeah.
I remember looking at the radar last night at about this time in this part of Texas and thinking these were individual cells, lots of visibility, not a whole lot around there. These were classic, as you say, textbook supercells with tornadoes.
And even just, you can see the parent thunderstorm. You can see the lowering of the wall cloud and then the tornado beneath this here. There's a lot to learn from looking at this as well.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's a subject for a discussion coming up.
I think it is.
We'll have a look at
this. To this video. But
that's a good video, yeah.
We've got storms today that we got to get to.
Yeah, racing their way across parts of Texas, East Texas.
Flooding, that there have been water rescues. The rain has been tremendous across eastern Texas through the overnight. Rainfall on the amount of 5 to 10 plus inches of rain has fallen in short order. And so now we're watching that big cluster of storms that did that moving over into Louisiana. So we're going to keep an eye on that flooding concern there. It's just a very saturated atmosphere here. And so there are numerous flash flood warnings that are still ongoing, even though the biggest rain has moved out. it's not like we're done completely with rainfall. So we still have some coming in. It won't be what we had before, but it's going to, of course, add more concern to what's already been done. We've got a couple of warnings that we've been tracking for you, too. Let's go to this one. This is the leading edge of the cluster of thunderstorms. It's had a history of having some severe thunderstorm warnings on it. Right now, it's a flash flood warning that's on it for Beaumont, Nederland, and Port Arthur. This rain came through Beaumont, had some gusty winds, not at severe limits, but some gusty winds that came through there. And now, of course, the big rainfall rates that it's bringing is the biggest concern. We also have a couple of flash flood warnings out here along Highway 69 and 287. Jasper, Tyler counties are under this. This includes Warren and Woodville. Considerable risk here of flash flooding. I know when you look at the radar, you think, well, the rain is over. Well, there's still some showers in the area, and the biggest of rain just left so much behind that bayous and streams and creeks here definitely have certainly felt the wrath of this rainfall. Now, we have a flash flood warning for new rain that is now coming into Huntsville and Riverside, plus what we just had. You know, between Huntsville and over towards Lake Livingston, this zone right here are the spots that have seen more than 10 inches of rainfall here in the last 24 hours. This is the radar estimates, and it's really the past 12 hours that this has all happened. It came down in very short order, 9.4 the radar estimates. There's plenty of spots where I'm able to confirm this with ground truth from the gauge system that is set up over Texas here, and they have an elaborate here and very specific system to allow us to see how much water has fallen, and these are all right in line with what I'm seeing at the gauges. 9.7, 8.9 here just near West Livingston and New Waverly, 6.2. So the concern is that this is what we had, and there's a little bit more coming in. And so rainfall today is going to be, any rainfall is going to be, I know, very stressful as it comes in here. So assume that if there's water covering a roadway, that it is not passable. If you could avoid travel, I would do that. That background color showed the available moisture in the atmosphere, and we have plenty. And so rain is still going to be heavy as we get new showers out there. And there have been plenty of storm reports that we've been tracking for you, including around Livingston and Cold Spring, Huntsville. There were flooding and water rescues ongoing earlier this morning. And so again, stay safe out there here, play it safe, and try to avoid travel if you can. Now, new thunderstorms will develop, and could they be severe, Greg? Let's talk about that. Are we in a race? Well, D.C. is a little ahead when you look at the forecast for today. Forecasting 90 here in D.C., Atlanta forecasting 87. Both spots, that's hot for you. Early May, temps are running above average. We're going to feel it all across the South. We're going to feel it through the Mid-Atlantic, Raleigh, and the Triangle area. You could hit your first 90 of the season here today, and a couple of spots could hit record highs. Raleigh is one of those areas to watch. Atlanta area, another two. A couple of areas here into Northern Virginia. Lynchburg, 91 is the record to beat. We're going 89, so it's close. It may not be a record. Jackson, Kentucky could hit a record if they hit 90. 87 is the old record to beat. 101 million above average tomorrow, so still on the warm side. Coming down to only 65 million above average as we look ahead to Sunday. But you notice by Tuesday, we're back in the warm again. 210 million above average, so it does return. Temperatures on Sunday, you'll see mid-80s in Nashville, little low 80s in Atlanta to Charleston, so little on the lower side. But you watch what happens as we get into next week. We start heating up again, and especially down here in South Texas, you'll see that first 88 degrees in Houston, 92 in Brownsville. It will be hot, and this is a new way to describe how hot is it going to be. The National Weather Service has now available a heat risk index, and it's available across the country. They've been working on this for years. It's been used in the West here over the past couple, especially in communities like Phoenix, where they have a lot of heat to deal with here, to really test it and make sure that it's going to be effective at communicating the risks. So we've got moderate to major heat risk impacts expected. This is Monday in Central and South Texas. That's the orange and the red on this map. And so it's very much about what happens and what's typical in the local areas. How much heat have you had already? How acclimated our people are to the heat? This is really the first big heat wave of the season. And so that's why we've got that major impact expected on the heat risk index into Tuesday, South Texas, and even getting into some of those burbs around the Houston area here. It's going to be a hot one getting into early next week. Now, Alex, the West Coast.
Doing a little planning already here as we were watching that.
I hope the Greg plans
trying to get to some of these locations. But yeah, I mean, it certainly is one of those things that you kind of think it's in the back of your mind. Okay, I'm planning a trip to go to these locations. When, as I said, it's cheaper during the hurricane season.
Yeah, it is.
But there is that risk of, could it get canceled because of some tropical cyclone?
That time of year, it is like August, a lot of things do shut down in the Caribbean. And so I guess you got to look and see, you know, at the particular island you're going to, will the restaurants be open? Will everything be open? But other than that, I say get insurance and, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
get insurance and go.
The chances are on your side that you will be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But insurance is complicated.
We can spend a whole show on that, absolutely. We'll be sure to tune in on Monday. We're going to chat with an expert on travel insurance to walk us through what it is and isn't covered, or what isn't covered as you plan your trips to the tropics.
Well, let's get on a getaway here and take a look at the rainfall here near Huntsville, just east of there, over towards West Livingston. The rain is still ongoing. Another batch has now started to work into that area. The leading edge of this cluster of storms, too, is also bringing the threat, maybe for some gustier winds, but its own risk of heavy rainfall.
Yeah, absolutely. So heads up there, Lake Charles, that's getting on top of you there. Some steady rains up into the northern part of the state of Louisiana. But let's get you down here. We got to get in that first edge of the leading edge of the storms. That's now pushed east, but back towards the west of that, as we get a bit of a break, we are still under a flash flood warning here for parts of Jefferson and Orange counties here in eastern Texas. Break. Jen, you mentioned there's more. It's very heavy rain that's getting ready to move in.
This area, I did some searching earlier to see how wet it's been lately. Just going back in the last 4 days in this region right here, 20 inches of rain.
4 days, 20 inches.
Yes.
Wow. And again, we're not dealing with a tropical system.
No.
This has nothing to do with the tropics, but we have the tropical air mass that's in place. But nonetheless, this is the type of thing that can happen out there. Again, another flash flood warning here for us. Parts of Polk, San Jacinto, and Walker counties here. We've been talking about the San Jacinto River and some of the evacuations that have been taking place around there in some of the low-lying areas. It's really been a tough time. And again, additional rainfall is absolutely not helping us out.
Yeah, the university, Sam Houston University, the Huntsville campus, they're not going into campus today. As you can imagine, you know, with what we've been dealing with and now more rain coming in, avoid travel across this area. And that does include parts of Interstate 45.
Absolutely. And you see more rain through today, basically today into tomorrow. There's still some spots there in eastern Texas that could see 3 to 5 additional inches of rain. Northern Louisiana, too. And then also another batch of heavy rain into the Midwest here, where it's been pretty wet as of late as well.
And we have new gauges that have now jumped up to major flooding. So you can see many more of these purple triangles indicating which gauges have the major flooding. And unfortunately, you look at the forecast for these, they're not coming down quickly.
Right. Staying high, if not anything, cresting, not until maybe the weekend, early next week for some of us. Well, we've got this heavy rain threat that's in place, but we're also continuing that risk for more strong and severe storms. Dr. Postel, to show you, it's pretty close to the radar, so it's tougher to pick out where the rotation is. But I would certainly say if you're in and around kind of Route 171, 511 here, and certainly up towards Shreveport, because this is headed in your direction. You want to make sure you're getting into your safe zone, sheltered in place. Lowest floor, sturdy structure away from the windows. Basically, you want to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. So an interior room like a closet or a bathroom is where you want to be in. Yeah,
we're tracking this north and east here. So the portion of the cell that is exhibiting the rotation is moving in that direction. Cedar Grove, 951. Werner Park, 1002. Shreveport, still inside that tornado warning, 1020. And then taking it just outside of the Warren area, 1034 Honor and 1052 Vanceville. So we are going to be watching this because there's a lot of rain, too. It's going to be hard to see anything in that area.
Looks like the scans pushing it just off towards the north there, at least in terms of that storm. So, again, getting closer and closer to the Shreveport area. If you are in Shreveport, again, not a whole lot of time before this gets on top of you. I would certainly, again, be getting into my safe zone right there. Looks like maybe a better shot to see would be right in that general area, basically crossing over 511 now is where the rotation with this particular storm is at least showing up the best right now. So, again, this is heading to Shreveport, timing it out, moving towards the northeast. Werner Park, 950, Shreveport for you, just prior to 10 o'clock.
Let's take a live look outside right now in Shreveport.
Towards Shreveport.
In the U.S., flooding is the #1 natural disaster.
But you don't have to be caught off guard when the heavy rain pours in. Here's some safety advice so you can plan ahead.
Obviously, concerns for travel today with all the rain that we've had in eastern Texas. The Weather Channel is your travel HQ. We want to check the forecast for the highways and skyways out there, starting with the airports. And right now, well, as you can imagine, we've got issues in Houston.
Yeah, you can imagine with all the showers and thunderstorms that have been moving on through right now, we're dealing with problems here. In fact, now a ground stop that is in place until 10:30. Not too long ago, it was a ground delay program because of these thunderstorms. So a lot of the flights that were trying to get to Houston, they were being delayed by almost 2 hours. Now it's a ground stop So nothing's going anywhere here for us, and you can see why. We got some big storms that are rumbling right around the airport.
Yeah, there's some tall ones out there too, especially the leading edge actually now is over in Louisiana, but planes are going to have to get around those too. So, even just getting to the airport, you're going to need to leave extra time. You have a flight later today. Maybe it's going to take off on time. Know that there's a lot of flooded roadways in parts of northeastern Texas. We've been talking a lot about the Huntsville area and just east of there. Travelers later in Kansas City may have delays.
Yeah, again, right through the heartland. Watch those areas very, very closely here for our day. And for some of those flights, you can see some of the flights that are already up in the air right now. And the reports coming in from the pilots showing that there is some light turbulence with some of these flights. Looks like a little bit stronger issue to deal with here right now coming into the Florida Panhandle with one of those flights reporting some turbulence.
Yeah, oh boy. So, a busy day ahead when it comes to whether that's going to affect the terminal, whether that could affect your flight, and, make it tough for pilots to find that nice, smooth air.
Right, exactly. We all want the smooth air, but it could be a little rocky here for us heading on into tonight in the upper Midwest. And then again, we've got more thunderstorms, some that could be strong, severe. Watch for some big hail in this area here along 20, including in and around Abilene. Asking you if you spent some time, a decent amount of time in space, what do you think you would miss most about Mother Nature here on Earth?
Karen says, I would miss speaking.
But yes, that makes sense. Absolutely. Keep the comments coming. Of course, we love to hear from you there. How about we get you into the out there, because the weekend Weather Channel has you covered here from coast to coast.
Already, storms have brought rain and flooding to parts of East Texas. This is in Polk County, where water is reaching the roofs on some of these homes.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible. These are homes.
Yeah.
Clearly, water should not be surrounding these homes, but they are inundated here by all this flood water.
And you guys mentioned accurately and rightly so, not a tropical cyclone. This is not a landfall of a hurricane. This is a heavy rain, non-tropical system that just brought so much with it into a tropical atmosphere.
Yeah, when you look at the soundings of the atmosphere outlook this morning, it looks tropical. Very saturated clouds, very high up and deep into the atmosphere, and unfortunately, we still have more rain in the forecast here, and I'm concerned about how this gets exacerbated.
Well, in Montgomery County, Texas, 16 inches of rain has fallen since overnight.
So residents in low-lying areas are now being urged to seek higher ground as rivers and creeks pose a great threat of overflowing.
We're going to bring in Jason Millsaps with the Montgomery County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management to tell us more about this ongoing situation. Thank you for joining us this morning. Can you tell us what conditions are like there right now? Are the roads still completely inundated?
Not everywhere in the county.
Question: what does this release of the dam water mean? Does it flood communities?
Yes, it will absolutely.
At this point, people have been asked to evacuate. Is that the case at this point? And do they have shelters set up for them for them to go to?
We are in the process of sharing.
Important. So what is the message specifically that you want to get out to the public, and what's the best way to get that message out?
Jason Millsaps there with the Montgomery County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Really, just a terrible situation there with the flooding. When you start hearing evoking images of Harvey, you know it's a serious situation.
As one of the greatest natural disasters flooding-wise in southeast Texas in recent memory, that this is at least in some way comparable. That is extremely noteworthy.
You think about the 30, 40 inches of rain that we got in Harvey. It still was over a number of days. And you go back 4 days, we've had at least 20 inches. It's obviously still falling. It's probably more than that. Look, obviously hearing that. So, boy. So I want to take you into the radar, show you what we're dealing with. Again, pay attention to your local emergency managers and what they are telling you to do here. Want to make sure you share with your friends and family too that this is a really serious situation in this area. Huntsville points eastward. Just looking at that zone in eastern Texas. We're also looking over here into Louisiana too, though, following the rain that's coming down for you. Want to make sure we're ahead of the game too, as well as we watch this rainfall. Haven't seen a lot of flash flood warnings yet out of Louisiana. A lot of it has been back here where, I think it's a combination of the rainfall rates were just so tremendous when this batch of rain was over here, but also that this was an area that just picked up big rain earlier this week and again last week as well. Just going back the past 4 days, there have been at least 20 inches of rain in several spots nearby Lake Livingston and what we've been dealing with. So here's a view of the portions of Harris, Liberty, and Montgomery County that are under a flash flood warning. This includes Spring, Texas. This includes the Woodlands under that flash flood warning. It is a combination of the rain that is falling right now and the rain that fell overnight that is driving this. And you can see just how inundated we are with these slow moving thunderstorms through through this area that have come back in. There was a brief break, and now we're back into the rainfall. Jumping north of there, the rain is not as heavy falling right now, but it was heavy earlier, and parts of Polk, San Jacinto, and Walker counties are under a flash flood warning. And this is an area with a significant threat. It's considerable. This goes until 1 o'clock this afternoon. If you can avoid travel, I would here, just not knowing, when you're going to run into a road that may be covered with water. You may think you know your local area, but sometimes situations like this can surprise you. Streams, creeks, bayous, etc. all will be forced out of the banks with the kind of rain that we have seen and still are seeing. Huntsville, Riverside, both under flash flood warnings. Parts of Grimes, Montgomery, and Walker counties here. This flash flood warning goes until 11:30. Again, been watching this through the overnight and early morning hours, and we've got the heavy rain back into this area. All right, so these are some of the reports that we've seen. Stranded motorists here in Mayha, multiple areas with flooding. Cold Spring, there have been reports there from the Texas DOT with water over roadways there. Huntsville, there have been reports this morning of flooding and water rescues, especially around the farm market 1696 area. And again, those are some reports that we've seen, but things are still active and things are still actually in progress across this area. Now, Houston, we've got delays at the airport here at Intercontinental, running about a 2-hour and 42-minute ground delay program. So the ground stop not in effect anymore, but this is all day, and this is for flights that are destined to Houston. You'll feel this at your starting point. So heads up, hey, even in places like New York City, you may feel the delay today because of this this delay program going on in Houston. Now, we do have more Texas thunderstorms in the forecast. Where will they be? Will they be severe, Greg?